Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are very happy and honored today to have two very important guests with us. Number one, Dr. Ari Nakisa, and also Dr. Ahmad Mulzi Abdullah. Both of them are lecturers at IIIU, Islamic Indonesian Islamic International University in Jakarta. Dr. Ari is a graduate from Harvard University, and he is an author of so many works, including the Anthropology of Islamic Law, the work that I have tried to read, but only partly. Will be very happy to have the full copy of it, to be able to read all of it. And Dr. Ahmad Mulzi Abdullah is a graduate from Turkish University. What university in Turkey you graduated from?
Ankara University.
Ankara University, and he is also currently lecturing at IIIU in Jakarta. So we are very happy and very honored. And today we want to have an informal conversation. We want to hear from two of them how they manage to become what they are today. And we are really appreciative of the research, particularly in terms, Dr. Ari has been very active in doing research on the anthropology of Islamic law, anthropology of education, of so many other Islamic issues. And Pak Mulzi has also done the same project. So without further ado, let us ask them about the personal experience, their biography, what they have been doing so far in doing research and in pursuing the research project. So welcome to you, Dr. Ari.
Okay, I'll say a couple words about my background. I was born and raised in the United States. My father was an immigrant from Iran. My mother is a American of German background. Alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim, although in the United States it's very common for parents not to focus too much on the religious upbringing of their children. Children choose their own path, but I was very interested in learning more about, I've always been very fascinated with religion, and specifically the relationship between religion and law. So as soon as I graduated from high school, I was thinking, how can I get more knowledge about this? So I joined a university in the United States called the University of Pennsylvania, and I studied religion and philosophy and the Arabic language there. And then I would spend every summer going abroad to the Arab world, especially to Egypt and also Morocco. I would spend a lot of time in Cairo and Fez. Every summer studying the Arabic language. And then after I got my bachelor's degree, I spent a 10-year period at Harvard getting an MA and a JD and a PhD, all focused on Islamic studies and with a specific focus on law, and then using anthropological perspectives. Now, I was always specifically very interested in the educational system and how the educational system taught religion and taught law. So I went ahead and I said I will write my dissertation on this topic. So for my dissertation, I got permission to basically spend around 3 years in Egypt. I got permission to audit classes at Al-Azhar and Darul Uloom at Cairo University. And then I ended up writing my dissertation on the relationship between modern Egyptian educational institutions and modern Islamic basic legal thought at these institutions.
Very interesting, very interesting. So when did exactly you start learning Islam? Is it during your high school or during university studies?
Actually, in high school, when I was maybe about 14 or 15, I started reading. I was very interested in a book by Houston Smith called The World's Religions. And I was studying all of the different religions in the world, and I just had a very special fascination with Islam. Although even to this day, I'm very interested in the similarities and differences between Islam and other religions. One of the classes that I teach at IIIU is actually on comparative religion.
But Houston Smith is very academic, and his book is very intellectual, which is good for the academician, for scholars to read that book. Did you also learn basic Islamic sciences like Sharia during your high school or during your university?
In terms of a formal program, there was no formal program. There were just the basic books. So, I would read books like Muwatta or Bulugh al-Maram, or I would read like a translation of The Reliance of the Traveler by Noah Keller. So those were some of the books that now there are more translated books available. But at that time, the books that were in English that had translations, they were more limited in number. And one of the major reasons why, as soon as I graduated from high school, right after my graduation ceremony, I got a ticket and I went to Cairo to study at American University in Cairo. They had an Arabic program there.
With Ahmad Khan in American University in Cairo. You know him?
Unfortunately, I don't think our paths cross, but I know a lot of people go there. It's a great institution, and one of the major reasons why I went there was to get enough Arabic to actually start reading in the original languages, or reading some of these texts that were otherwise not translated.
Interesting. Pak Ahmad Muzi, can you tell us about yourself? Dari mana, kemudian bagaimana ceritanya bisa sampai ke Turki, kemudian adakah tips-tips untuk anak-anak kita di UINSA ini agar bisa mengikuti jejak Pak Muzi sampai bisa menjadi dosen di UI 3 ini?
Terima kasih Pak Dekan Fakultas Usuluddin dan Filsafat Prof. Abdul Qadir Riyadi PhD atas waktunya. Ya, saya basically graduated from UIN Sunan Kalijaga di Bachelor ini program. Saat itu masih tergabung antara tafsir hadis. Hari ini udah dipisah IAT dan IH. Dan setelah itu saya lanjut Master and PhD di Ankara University, Graduate School of Social Sciences in the Department of Tafsir. Jadi simply saya dapat beasiswa dari Kementerian Luar Negeri Turki, sehingga saya mengaksesnya lewat embassy Turki yang ada di Jakarta untuk master. Setelah selesai master, profesor saya ternyata tidak mengizinkan untuk pulang ke Indonesia sebelum selesai doktor, sehingga dia menyurati pemerintah Turki untuk menjamin beasiswa saya di program doktor. Dan alhamdulillah totally hampir 9 tahun Pak saya di Ankara.
Itu saat S2, S3?
S2, S3.
Oke.
Dan ini sebagai sharing, di Turki itu untuk kajian Islamic Studies rata-rata menggunakan bahasa Turki, sehingga 1 tahun kita i'dad atau preparation untuk kelas bahasa Turki. Ya saat itu saya juga prejudice saya mengatakan bahwa orang Turki menggunakan bahasa Inggris dan Arab. Ternyata setelah saya ke sana nobody speak English and Arabic. And then ya awal hari pertama saya hanya menggunakan body language untuk komunikasi dengan mereka. Tapi itu ternyata menjadi challenge saya untuk belajar bahasa Turki lebih cepat.
Oke. Dan mudah bahasa Turki untuk dipelajari?
Sangat susah, lebih susah
Sangat
dari
susah,
Inggris
ya?
dan Arab.
Oh begitu ya?
Karena strukturnya berbeda Pak. Kalau bahasa Indonesia sama bahasa Inggris, Arab saya pikir hampir sama. Saya makan nasi, I eat rice. Kalau bahasa mereka strukturnya saya nasi makan. Ya, jadi makannya dulu, makannya di belakang. Sehingga saya bahasa Indonesianya juga tidak teratur, tidak bagus. Kebalik-balik ketika ngomong kadang.
Iya. Saya cuma tahu satu kata bahasa Turki, hanya neselsen saja.
Masya Allah.
Iya. Baik, kemudian kapan selesai S3 Pak Mugzi?
Saya selesai di November 2022. Setelah itu di awal 2023 saya di LB di Pasca Sarjana UIN Sunan Kalijaga. Juni saya bergabung 2023 ke UI 3, sehingga totally hampir baru 1,5 tahun saya di UI 3.
Oke. Kalau field of research-nya di bidang apa?
Kebetulan field of research saya di classical tafsir and post classical tafsir, khususnya di Ottoman tafsir.
Oke. Iya. Berarti sangat mengenal Badi'uz Zaman Said Nursi ya?
Iya. Cuma ini menjadi catatan dan menjadi perhatian saya. Kenapa orang Indonesia hanya mengenal sosok Badi'uz Zaman Nursi, padahal di balik itu banyak scholars yang lebih prominent, dan Badi'uz Zaman tidak menjadi fokus subject research di academic scholars di Turki, karena tidak terlalu akademis.
Oh gitu ya?
Iya, Prof.
Oh. Kok bisa dibilang begitu ya?
Karena di balik itu pertarungan ideologi, Prof.
Ideologi, iya. Ideologi. Ada ulama lain di Turki yang menarik saya ya, namanya Haji Khalifah. Pernah dengar ya?
Yeah.
Itu seperti apa di Turki, penerimaan masyarakat Turki tentang Haji Khalifah ini?
Haji Khalifah itu termasuk post classical scholars.
Betul ya.
Dan itu sangat dihormati karena dia punya banyak karya dan merecord
Kashfuz Zunun karyanya.
Itu, Prof. Saya pikir itu jauh lebih prominent dan jauh lebih akademik daripada Badi'uz Zaman Nursi yang
begitu ya? Iya. Tapi lagi-lagi mungkin alasan ideologi ya.
Siap, Prof.
Yeah. Dr. Ari, I was interested in what you have done in your Anthropology of Islamic Law, particularly in your methodology. I was curious of the way you combine what you call hermeneutic theory and hermeneutic practice in doing research on that issue. Can you share with us what do you mean by hermeneutic theory and hermeneutic practice, and how you combine the two seemingly difficult tools of theory to deal with the issue of anthropology of Islamic law?
Okay, I'll try and provide a simple explanation, but it will be a little bit oversimplified given the time that we have. So basically, hermeneutic theory is how do you understand someone's mind? So how do you understand someone's intentions or desires or beliefs? Obviously, we can't look into each other's mind, and the question of figuring out what's in someone's mind isn't only relevant to understanding human beings. So Muslims, of course, want to understand what the Prophet ﷺ, what exactly he believed, what his intentions and his goals were, and then beyond that they want to understand kind of the will or the intentions of God as well, and also his desired ends, his maqasid. But this is a challenge because ultimately, in terms of understanding the mind of the Prophet ﷺ or understanding the mind of God, like the will or the irada or the mashi'a of Allah, we we can only go on what's been said, so maybe certain statements in the Quran, and we can only also go on certain actions. So for instance, if we want to understand things about what is in the mind of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we can look at his actions, which are the sunnah, and try and gather information on that. So the entire thing about hermeneutic theory is basically how can we look at someone's statements and how can we look at someone's actions and draw conclusions about what their will or what their desired goals are. And one of the things that I argue in the book is so much of Islamic law is about trying to figure out what the will or the goals of God and his prophet are by looking at the statements of God in the Quran, and in addition to that, the statements of the Prophet ﷺ and also his actions. So how can we infer things like the maqasid of the Sharia or for instance, when we have a statement in the Quran like don't drink khamar, how can we infer from that actually it's not, the intention is not only don't drink khamar, but maybe don't drink anything that intoxicates, like for instance, date wine, or don't smoke marijuana. So it's that question. And one of the things that I say is that when people actually are interested in understanding this, not only do they look at the statements of God in the Quran and the actions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they also look at the actions of their shuyukh. So in traditional Islamic studies, you try and look at Islam not only by looking at the example of the Prophet and the way that he acts based on because it's believed that the Prophet ﷺ, his actions are based on an understanding of the will of God. So by looking at the Prophet, we can understand the will of God. But also ideally these shuyukh, these religious scholars, imitate the Prophet ﷺ, and ideally their actions are also based on the will of God. And if we see them doing things, if we see a religious scholar saying things like, no, I'm not going to smoke a cigarette, maybe one of the things that we can infer is that it is the will of God that Muslims should avoid smoking. So I talk about how in traditional Islamic education, people not only study the Quran and the Hadith, they also study on the basis of suhbah, what they see from the scholars that teach them in kind of traditional Islamic learning. And that is a type of hermeneutic theory. That's an application of hermeneutic theory. And then when it comes to practice theory, whereas hermeneutic theory is trying to figure out what is in people's minds that maybe is hidden, their beliefs, their desires, their intention, their will. Practice theory is more about how you can transform your own mind, or what we'd say in Islam, how you can transform your own heart. So the idea is that one of the aims of traditional Islamic education is you go ahead and engage in certain practices, and through those practices you transform your heart. So this might be called tahdhib al-akhlaq, it might be called tazkiyat al-qalb. So that's another thing that I look at. I really talk about is traditional Islamic education as having two components. One is trying to figure out kind of the hidden desires and intentions of God, and when you understand God's intentions, and you understand God's will, you understand the Sharia, what he has willed to be halal, what he has willed to be haram, but also Islamic, and that's how you use hermeneutic theory. And then in terms of practice theory, traditional Islamic education is ideally supposed to transform you, is ideally supposed to transform your akhlaq, and that really affects how you reason and how you apply the Sharia as well. So.
And how that has to do with the idea of anthropology?
Well, so one issue that you get in anthropology is you go ahead and instead of in a maybe historical study, you rely exclusively on textual sources. So the way that you understand Islamic education is you see what people have written about Islamic education. So that maybe there's an educational treatise that you have a Muslim scholar write, or maybe you read Ihya Ulumuddin of Al-Ghazali, and he says, here is some advice for students on education. The thing about anthropology is it's not ignoring textual sources, but looking at additional sources. So it's about interviewing people, like interviewing students, interviewing scholars, interviewing administrators, people working in the administration. It's also about observing, kind of long-term observation. So, to what extent are people involved in Sufi tariqas? And to what extent do they have practices that are designed to transform their hearts? And what might those practices be, whether it's in terms of dress or dhikr or suhbah or something else? Furthermore, when we look at the modern structure of the university, to what extent, if we spend time there and we look at the curriculum and we look at the classroom and we look at where the students are living, to what extent are patterns that we find in traditional Islamic education, to what extent are they still present there, and to what extent have they been removed by recent transformations in Islamic education? So one of the things that you find if you're talking about an institution like Al-Azhar is the way that the students live and the way that the students learn is quite different. It's really been transformed since the 19th century. So before, in the 19th century, they're doing things like living at Al-Azhar Mosque. They're doing things like making suhbah with their teachers, kind of living as close disciples of their teachers, joining Sufi tariqas, and considering things like tazkiyat al-qalb or attaining a type of mystical ma'rifah as being part of the educational system. But then when you talk about the types of reforms that have happened since the 19th century and are associated to some extent with Muhammad Abdu and British colonialism, it's really altering in fundamental ways the style of education and the type of scholar that is produced and the type of thought, the type of way of thinking about the Sharia and thinking about sacred knowledge. It really undergoes some important transformations. That doesn't mean that the transformations are wrong or right. I just try and describe them accurately.
When you do research on Al-Azhar, did you interview particular shuyukh in Al-Azhar?
Yeah, I tried to interview dozens, if not hundreds, of scholars and students and administrators, but basically anyone who is part of this institution, and not only kind of get to know them on campus, but also get to know their personal lives. Like, for instance, what is the background? Are they children of scholars? Are they children of farmers? Does everyone who graduates from Al-Azhar, do they dress up like a scholar? Are they recognized as scholars? And actually, what you would find is no. Actually, a lot of them get their degree from Al-Azhar and then they become like a cab driver or a doormat, and no one would think that they have like a background in religious scholarship. So there are a lot of surprising things, and even on campus, there's a big difference between students who just attend the classes to get a degree and students who attend the classes but then also attend different halaqat with different sheikhs to get additional ijazas, and this ultimately leads to very different trajectories. And of course, there are also political elements. Like every society in the world has the government to some extent tries to regulate religious authority. So this is also something that has a big impact on who becomes a scholar and who doesn't become a scholar. Because if you want to teach at a mosque, if you want to get a position at a university, there's an element of supporting particular political stances, and the different religious scholars, when they're trying to chart their careers, they're figuring how exactly do they balance things.
Interesting.
Pak Mugzi, what is the topic of your dissertation?
Actually, my topic of my PhD dissertation was reading the cultural and anthropological aspect in Abu Su'ud Tafsir. It was Irshadu Aql Salim ila Mazayid Kitab al-Karim.
Irsyadu al-Aql Salim. Ada sisi antropologinya ya di situ ya.
Yes, actually, jadi menariknya dari yang konsen saya adalah post classical period, Prof. Prejudice kita yang mengatakan bahwa Islam mengalami kemunduran, periode dekadensi muncul setelah Mongol menyerang Baghdad dan Baghdad itu selesai peradabannya. Kemudian kita miss pre-modern period itu sebagai subject of research, sehingga kita banyak mengatakan, termasuk Andrew Ripin, Benjamin Cowlett mengatakan itu adalah dekadensi period. Tidak perlu, dan karena hanya ada repetisi yang tidak bermanfaat itu bagi mereka, itu ternyata menjadi bahan penyemangat saya. Ternyata di balik itu adalah lembaran-lembaran dan manuskrip-manuskrip yang hidup dan sangat dialektik, termasuk Abu Suud ini, Prof. Karena Abu Suud ini hidup di era abad ke-16 dan dia ulama paling dekat dengan Sultan Sulaiman Al-Qanuni. Dan era Ottoman yang paling magnificent adalah Sultan Sulaiman Al-Qanuni. Itu kenapa dia disebut Al-Qanuni, karena
membuat banyak undang-undang.
Nah, di balik itu adalah Abu Suud sebagai Syekhul Islam. Hal-hal yang menarik adalah bagaimana dia mengizinkan interest atau bunga bank itu sampai 10% halal menurut dia, meskipun
halal
menjadi perdebatan di era itu. Kemudian ketika Ottoman butuh income karena membutuhkan banyak biaya untuk invasi ke Eropa Timur sehingga Islam nyampe ke sana, itu adalah butuh income sehingga dia mengeluarkan fatwa menyamakan pajak dengan zakat.
Jadi yang sudah bayar pajak atau sudah bayar zakat nggak perlu bayar pajak, atau sebaliknya. Itu menarik diterapkan di Indonesia.
Betul, Prof. Sehingga itu tercermin dari Al-Fatawanya Abu Suud yang ditulis dengan bahasa Ottoman Utsmani. Saya pikir mengakses ke sana memang hal yang sangat challenge. Kita harus belajar bahasa Turki, Ottoman. Kemudian ditafsirnya juga Irsyad Aqli Salim, bagaimana dia mengatakan siapa yang tidak membayar zakat berarti dia murtad karena keluar dari prinsip la ilaha illallah. Artinya sebenarnya itu ada hal-hal yang sangat mempengaruhi dari pemikirannya dia, hubungannya dia dengan sultan, sehingga negara butuh income, mungkin seperti inflasinya tinggi. Gitu,
Luar biasa. Baik, saya kira demikian perbincangan kita dengan kedua tamu yang luar biasa ini. It's been very interesting to have this conversation, very challenging, especially what Pak Muzi says here. The tax is equal to zakat, according to Abu Saud in his Irshadul Uqul. And also what Pak Ari has said is very interesting. I think what he has done is kind of breakthrough in the study of Islamic law, that Pak Ari has not only has only seen Islamic law as what Allah and His Messenger said, but Islamic law is also what you practice in your daily life according to your understanding on the sacred sources of Islamic law. So unfortunately, that's what we have time for, and time has run out. And we once again thank you, both of you, for coming to our podcast, and looking forward to your visit again. I hope this is not the last visit. We are very happy and looking forward to another conversation, perhaps online, Pak Ari.
It's an honor, and I hope that this is the first of a number of conversations.
Inshallah.
And then we will invite you in Triple IU.
Inshallah.
You're visiting there.
Inshallah, it's be very honored for me to visit Triple IU. And looking forward to see you again some other time, inshallah. And thank you for watching this wonderful episode of Channel U. With me, Abdul Qadir Riyadi, the Dean of Faculty of Usuluddin and Philosophy. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.